Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to Ed Cruz's The Last Lesson, and today will be episode 8. And I'm gonna phrase it, and like I said, if I change it on the title, so be it. Episode 8 is called The Slap. So today is the day after the Oscars. The only reason I knew about the Oscars was happening was because of the event that happened last night. Otherwise, watching award events, I don't get it. But anyway, let's talk about the subject. Basically, without going into too much details, someone told, I think told a joke. Smith didn't like it. He seemed to like it because he laughed at it. Then he came up on stage and slapped him, and yada yada. And that's what everyone's talking about. So by the time you see this video, this will be 3 days out, I believe, because I have a set amount of videos that are released per day. But let's talk a little bit about that. How does this relate to Wing Chun and so forth? So, in essence, when we talk about the stance, right? We talk about Yichikima, and the physical sense is very simple. You make a stance so you are a solid structure. And when you become a solid structure, that means outside force that comes in, you don't become dependent on that other force. At the same time, that acceptance and knowledge of the outside force means that outside force will always constantly exist, and the adjustment that you make or that you can control isn't so much the outside force, but your reaction to that or how you react to that. So it's always, everyone always is so, I guess I get that way too. It's kind of cool. You see someone you like do a movie or someone famous you see, and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty awesome, and you get to see them. But if you really think about it, at the end of the day, and everyone has their different varying opinion of it, and I really don't give a fuck what their opinion is. I'm just going to tell you from the Wing Chun perspective, how we look at things is, I think a long time ago it was said that if you get offended by something, don't worry about who offends you. You got to ask yourself, really, bottom line is, why that offends you. Because think about it, yesterday, with all the money, all the fame, and all the hoopla that Will Smith has, the comments were made, and this day and age, you gotta remember, I grew up in the 80s, and then we had a joke book. It was called, what was that? Something like the grossest joke or whatever, or it was, I even forgot what the title was, but it was brutal jokes that we told back in the day and stuff like that. And I can't, if I can remember, I'll try to bring it up. But the point is, we used to joke about each other all the time, whether it was racial, because my group of friends that we had a whole group of different friends. I had one friend who was Pakistani, one friend who was Thai, one friend who was Russian. I guess I didn't have a white friend at that time, so I guess maybe I was kind of racist then. I don't know. Regardless of the point is that at that time when we would make fun of each other, we would joke each other, we didn't give a crap about it. We would hear truly tasteless jokes. I think that's what it was called. So it was truly tasteless jokes. So you would hear these jokes and then, oh man, that was a brutal joke. I can't believe it. But now in this day and age, everyone's a snowflake. Everyone's offended. And everyone would be like, oh, you just went above what you should be. But regardless of the cases, just think about what that means. With all the money, fame that Will Smith has and so forth, that when you can be controlled by people outside that, you value. I mean, when people make comments about you or whatever, you basically only give them meaning, right? You give them meaning because imagine a stranger says, oh, you're a jerk. And you're like, oh, why do you call me jerk? I'm going to be really upset that you call me jerk. Who is that person to you? What value does that person give to him? So you as the individual by yourself, give that individual value. Because he says something, oh, okay. Is there any, you as yourself, if you know yourself well enough, do you understand? I mean, if he says you're a jerk, maybe you are a jerk. You got to ask yourself, why would that offend you? Because as a Wing Chun man, when a woman, man, or woman, or practitioner, what happens on the outside world is like, a lot of times when I call Sifu, or when I used to call Sifu quite a bit, there wasn't really much conversation involved with it because it's like, so Sifu, how's everything going? Everything's going okay. Even during COVID, how's everything going? Everything's going okay. Because as a Wing Chun person, whatever the outside force is, it doesn't really matter. Because what you learn from Yichikimi Ma is yourself, right? That when the force comes in, I make the adjustment to myself, and I am in total control of that. If you can be in control of yourself, then you can't be phased or vexed or whatever, or offended or moved by words, comments, and so forth. It just isn't the case. I kind of make a joke to to the students that sometimes it's like, sometimes, how come you never complain? And they'll say sometimes, oh, you do complain. You complain about weather. I was like, yeah, I gotta complain about weather because nothing else to complain about. But in actuality, I just kind of complain about the weather around here in Chicago. It's because, if I tell them, if I don't complain about that, then I won't sound so human. Then they'll think basically everything's always going so good for me. And the reality is, that's what makes Wing Chun so strong. And I think all martial arts, if you really do it well and understand it well, it makes you strong as an individual. Because imagine someone calls you something, says a bad name, says something racial to you, and you get moved by that. You are controlled by that individual. And you got to remember, the word symbol, that meaning is, that meaning, you give that meaning for that being said, not the other way around. So anytime someone's like, that's offensive, you shouldn't say that. Basically, I'm at the point where, I created the last lesson compared to Windy City and Kyoto. I created because there's no accommodation here. I don't accommodate anyone, okay? In other words, I kind of like when you go to a Japanese restaurant, you know how they always go, here they go like, oh, do you have any food allergies, or is there something that you don't like? In Japan, when you go eat at certain places, like more exclusive places, they'll be like, look, we can't accommodate you. This is what we serve, and if you don't like it, you can't eat here. And that's basically where I'm at the point right now, as far as my training and teaching. I'm basically at no accommodations. I accommodate nobody. And if someone says, oh, that's offensive, you offended me. Well, if I offended you, yeah, I don't give a fuck. Seriously, that's your problem. Hopefully you deal with it because I'll be able to sleep at night. I don't care. You really got to get to the point where as you train, you learn about yourself more, right? And that makes it very strong as far as that statement is. Because, let me give you more examples. Because when you, as Wing Chun, you got to develop the skill to know yourself, right? And when you know yourself, if someone goes, oh, you're an idiot. Well, you go, well, I know I'm not an idiot, so even if you call me an idiot, I don't care, right? I mean, if you're offended, there might be some truth behind it. It's like, oh, maybe I am dumb. I know he might be right for a while, right? But as a Wing Chun person, that's the control you aspect. That because you just kind of like, okay, no problem. He's saying whatever, let him talk, let him talk, right? That's what you want to get to the point. You know yourself. And you decide whether or not you give that individual some meaning or not. You let a complete stranger control you, who you don't know, who has no value to you at all, then by all means, practice more, I would say, okay? So in the end, that's what I think something that you have to learn as, if you really understand martial arts. And frankly, if you don't, then, maybe you need a slap. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. And I didn't really go into detail how do you achieve that through it. But if you look at it a little deeper, the stance in itself is one aspect. Stand. The force comes in. I don't care about the force. I adjust myself. I make the adjustment automatically. The force will always exist. I don't fear the force. I don't care what the force does. I'll make the adjustments overall. So if you remember that, right? Remember that. Don't be controlled by other people, then you'll become a better person overall. All right.